everybody, it's Nancy Reyes with For Your Canine.
And Lisa Bataska with Canine Defined.
Uh, I hope you're out there. We're going to be talking about more on canine fitness. As you know, we're really pretty passionate about it, not only because we do a lot of dog sports, but also just to keep our dogs in pretty good physical condition so they can live longer lives and stay with us a bit longer. And also, to be honest, it's much cheaper to keep your dogs fit because they don't have to go to the vet as much. Anyway, tonight we have Erica Boling with us. I'm going to let her kind of introduce herself and what she does. I met Eric. It's been a couple of years now, and you were on our Facebook Live. Yeah, Facebook Live, maybe a year or so ago, talking about canine fitness. So this is just a continuation of a little bit more on fitness, because I think we forget a little bit that it's an important piece of the puzzle, especially for a lot of our people that do a lot of sports, right? Whether it's agility or nose work or whatever. So Erica, tell us a little bit about you and your background and all that cool stuff.
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm the owner and the founder of Northeast Canine Conditioning. We have an online academy, in person, started out with some seminars and workshops in canine fitness. But my background's in canine fitness. I started in human fitness and canine massage. And I would say what really got me involved in canine fitness was getting involved in the sport and working dog world. And one of my own dogs had gotten injured. He had a pulled muscle. And through the rehabilitation, I started finding out about all of these things that I should have been doing that most people, a lot of times we don't think about as far as, treating our dogs as the true athletes that they are. Even if I tell people, even if you're not like competing or have a working dog or sport dog, if just dogs are athletes, even our pet dogs, the amazing things that they can do. And there, a lot of people, even human athletes, don't necessarily think about their dogs as a canine athlete. And when you start looking at what it means to be fit and healthy, for life, but also in sports and in their jobs, we really need to be thinking about the dog, kind of the whole dog, from what we do before exercise, during exercise, after, from the, the food that goes into them, warming up, cooling down. If you think of what we do as human athletes, or when you go to the gym, you don't just, go for a car ride for an hour and get out and say, okay, get on the treadmill, get on an incline and run as hard as you can without a warm up. And what happens is when we don't think about them and work with them in the ways that we should as a canine athlete, we set them up for definitely potential, injuries, potential health issues from not being fit and healthy. We have an obesity epidemic in the United States with our dogs. And I don't know the research. We've had research in the US, but I've talked to people in other countries, and I think there are a number of countries that are similar. But there were some studies done just a couple years ago, and they were saying, well over half of the dogs in the US are overweight and obese. And they've done research studies where, when these dogs are not fit, and they're, pet dogs, working dogs, sport dogs, when they're overweight and not as fit as they can be, not as healthy as they can be, we are literally taking years off of their lives, years. And they've done research on this. They've looked at different breeds, and it's really scary when you look at, some of the numbers. And so what got me started in fitness was, keeping my own dogs healthy and fit and through sports and, activities, but also wanting to help spread knowledge and awareness, because a lot of times, I know, especially here in the United States, a lot of people don't know what a fit, healthy dog should look like. Yeah. And so it was interesting. They did research and they looked at people and surveyed them to see if they thought their dog was overweight. And the majority of the people, when their dogs were overweight, they didn't even recognize it. They thought that their dog was fine. So there was a huge need for awareness, for across the board, and helping people understand what does it mean to have a healthy dog. What is a good healthy weight, but then also when we're doing sports and activities or we have working dogs, the things that we should be doing to help keep them, fit and healthy. And the other thing on that side with the sport and working dog world, we get a lot of these real high drive dogs, high energy dogs. Now they're at an even higher risk for injury because of, their drive and their temperament. And some of these dogs will go, and they just won't stop. Then you run into more injuries, heat stroke, things like that. And so here, building knowledge and awareness of canine fitness can literally be, and I know, is saving lives, because dogs are needlessly not just getting injured, but dogs are dying because well-intentioned owners, they're not doing it on purpose, but they just don't know. They don't have the knowledge of some of the signs and things that maybe they're even doing before they're working their dog hard, or taking them out in hot, humid weather, and keeping them healthy. So that was the big thing was, like I said, it started with my own dog's injury and realizing the things that I should be doing and more people should be doing, but also just spreading more awareness about health, general fitness, from helping them live longer to saving lives. So that's a little bit of my background. And I was just going to add the background. I started out with pet dogs and then got involved in detection work, narcotics, did some narcotics work with my dogs, and protection sports. So kind of I'm looking at it, and search and rescue. So kind of looking at it from a broad spectrum of different sports and from canine jobs.
Well, I mean, if you think about what you said, it really is very striking. It takes years off your dog's life, and they already don't live very long.
Yeah.
Right. Their lifespans are so short. So they're already not living a long life. And for us to, not, and I do agree. Some of our clients, they come in and their dogs are very overweight and they want to do agility, and it's hard because it's like, oh, your dog really shouldn't be jumping or whatever. They need other things to keep them in better shape. So we have already questioned. So the question is, any suggestions for fast cat, duck diving, and hunting? So again, and it goes back to what I wanted to talk to Erica about, was how to help build a dog's stamina, because for hunting, they need a lot of stamina. For fast cat and duck diving, they don't. They're more sprinting sports. Fast cat's just a straight line, running as fast as you can on a straight line, and duck diving is just pushing off on the rear. So you need more power for fast cat and duck diving, where you need a lot more stamina for hunting and most of the detection sports too, and herding, which is what they need the stamina to be able to work for longer periods of time. So so if you could address, you're asking for a dog that's going to do fast cat and duck diving, and also hunting, which requires different types of conditioning. It'd be interesting to know, like, okay, how do you, like, we do a lot of the sports I do is a lot of detection or scent work and stuff. So nose work. So that's where I'm coming from, that perspective of doing that. But duck diving is very popular, and so is fast cat. But I worry, I'll be honest, I worry about my dogs jumping off the dock as much as they like it. But I don't mind them doing it when they're just doing it, they're having fun with it. Where duck diving, when it's serious, they have to push off. And I've known some dogs get some ACL tears, or some injuries from that. So
from the duck diving. Yeah. So it was interesting. Right before we went live, we were talking about what topic you want to talk about. And this is one of my favorite topics, is talking about things like stamina, endurance. And I'll just quickly put in a note that we've got I'm doing a live free webinar on this in a couple weeks. So we're going to dig a lot more deeply. We have even more time for that. But one of the things when I talk about stamina endurance is to first kind of clarify how I'm using the terminology, because a lot of times people use the words and kind of interchange them together. And I kind of pull from some of like the National Academy of Sports Medicine and some of the kind of the human side of things. So just to make it clear whenever I'm using the terms and refer to this, and this exactly speaks to kind of the different things that we're looking at for the different types of dogs. When I speak about endurance, so we think about a dog being able to do an activity for kind of that repetitive activity for a long period of time. So thinking about like a dog, a search dog that's searching, a bunch of acreage. I think about sled dogs that are, having to run for miles. So how in the human world, how sometimes we differentiate the two, where endurance is kind of having that ongoing, maintaining whatever that activity is for a period of time. So we're looking more for length of time, not necessarily super, super, super high intensity, right? So if we're going to go for a longer period of time, they can't work it super hard. Then when we speak about stamina, is maintaining an activity, but at a very like that high intensity. So if we're going at a super high intensity, we can't last as long. So if you think about like duck diving, right? It's a very short period of time, but they need a lot of intensity and power to be launching. Fast cat, it's high intensity, short period of time. So using these definitions, I would say that's more kind of building, that emphasis is more on stamina. So, but just to keep it clear, so I'll try to kind of avoid throwing words randomly. So I'll kind of say for those shorter, intense bursts of energy, for those types, I would say a lot of our dog sports do a lot of really high intense activity for a short period of time. A lot of them have that. Things like herding and searching and sled dogs, and people do dry land mushing. That's more kind of heavy endurance, more for extended period of time. And then there's also a lot of sports are kind of a combination of the two, right? You'll have a dog that has to go for a period of time, but within that period of time, there's lots of kind of short bursts of energy in between. Protection sports and some of the sports where the dog might be on the field, they're going to do some jumping, some bite work, some searching. And so you have some kind of lower intensity over a period of time, but then you have those moments of real super high intense activity for a very short burst. So what you're looking at with those dogs is when you're training your dog, you have to identify what are the areas you're wanting to build up, right? And what is your sport leaning towards? And I would say one of the biggest things to be aware of, the question was like in a fast cat and hunting
hunting,
right?
Yeah.
So the challenge here is when we have a lot of sports that are super, super high intense activity, short period of time, really, jump as high as you can, run as fast as you can over a short period of time. That high intensity is putting more stress on the soft tissues, the tendons, and the ligaments. So what happens is if you're just doing a bunch of real high intense training, a couple things is you're not building a foundation kind of to work that body over time. So if you're doing like a long Friday or Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you're doing this activity over a period of time, the body just hasn't built up and adapted to this extended amount of time of work. And also it's harder on the body. Think about how hard they're launching themselves and how hard they're running. So if the dog's body is not well conditioned and adapted for that, it's kind of like being like if you're maybe like a couch potato during the week, for 6 days out of the week. And then on day 7, you're expected to go at, 98%.
Right.
And so that is what's setting dogs up for higher risk for injury.
Right.
So one of the best things is to build a nice solid foundation first. And getting, building up some strength, building up some cardio where your dog is getting active more than 1 day a week, spending more days during the week where you're getting more activity, get the heart rate up. It doesn't have to be super, super high, but get that, like humans, you want to get that heart rate up for say approximately 20 minutes or more and just get that heart rate elevated and have continuous activity. So that's one of the first things is if you're doing those types of activities, especially the super intense ones, if you're doing your activities just like one day a week or once every 2 weeks, one of the best things you can do is try to get your dog more active throughout the week and not necessarily working at that super, super high intense level unless you've already have that solid weekly foundation. So the body's used to doing exercise more than one day a week and just building up and getting the dog used to doing more activity on a consistent basis before you start really pushing the body harder. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would be, like I said, I see what a lot of people do is that, the sports are really in those high intense activities, and the bodies, they're not training either the right type of training or frequently enough to build up the body to be nice and strong to withstand that over time, right? And that's going to help your dog perform better. They're going to have better stamina. They'll be building up, stronger muscles. They'll be able to withstand that activity better. If you can get a program more consistent throughout the week and getting them more active to build kind of that baseline would be the first recommendation I would have if somebody has like that weekend warrior where you're doing mostly just that, club training on a Saturday, right?
Yeah. Well, Kimberly asked, do you recommend swimming or treadmill workouts?
That's a good question. So here's the thing is, you need to, if you're training for sport or a job, is you have to also, prepare the body for the demands of sport-specific activity. And swimming is great for like cross training. It's great for building up cardiovascular, it's good for the heart. It's good for the health. But if you look at sport-specific training, like, for example, when I was training for a marathon, I was training on the flat, no mountains, no hills. And then I did the New York City Marathon and I forgot they have bridges. And so it's like I could run for hours on the flat, but if you told me to go, run a bunch of bridges or run up and down this, 7 flights of stairs, I'm dying because I did not train for running upstairs. I trained for on the flat, right? So just because you're swimming does not build up, swimming endurance is not a 1-for-1. It's just because I have good endurance in the pool doesn't mean that I'm going to have good endurance on land. And if any of you don't swim much at all, and you go and you run a few miles on the treadmill, and then you go in and try to swim, like a mile in the pool, like you're dying because it's good for the heart, it's good for the health, right? But it's working the body differently. So if you want your dog to be better in your sport, you have to train in your sport. The body has to be acclimated to the activities that you do and cross training so you don't have repetitive use injuries. But if you're looking like, okay, well, if I can't run if I have a sled dog and I can't exercise as much, swimming a lot is not necessarily going to see, a huge difference in that dog actually being on land, because you've got gravity, you've got the weight of the body is different in the water versus on land. Resistance, if you have resistance. So it's great for cross training, if your sport is a land sport. And the same thing goes too. If your dog is doing sports where you're relying on a lot of swimming, land work is going to be great. You have added gravity, so it's going to help to develop, stronger muscles and and develop the body and the strength wise. But just because your dog, say, is on land, is not necessarily going to see huge improvements in their swimming, right?
Yeah, so, because that's one thing for swimming. I think, would you agree that swimming is good for building endurance, right? Not so much.
I mean, it's good for building, it can be good for building endurance, especially if you're swimming in the water and building endurance in the water. And it will, it's going to help make them healthier, but you're not going to see that if you're relying more on swimming for land endurance, you're not going to see the type of growth unless you're building up also training on land for endurance, right?
Yeah. So you have to do both.
Yeah, I would do the swimming would be a nice a way to do cross training to, you know, still get the physical health benefits, and then, you know, working the muscles in different ways so you minimize repetitive use injuries. And then also, if you're looking at, you know, if you're always doing just one the same type of activity over and over, you're developing certain muscles and the body's developing strength in one area, but then the other areas you're ignoring, you're developing actually some weaknesses. So it could also, the cross training is wonderful, because if you're doing like just a particular sport repeatedly, you have certain muscle groups that aren't being attended to in the same way. And so it's nice for cross training, but you still have to, if you're doing sport specific training and work specific, you just have to know it's not necessarily a one-to-one correlation that my dog is getting better in the water, therefore he's going to be doing so much better endurance wise on land. Right.
Right. Yeah. So I have a couple. So a couple questions. It says, there's any advice to handlers that have versatile dogs which enjoy activities? Would you limit the amount of multiple events they enter? I pulled our dog from dock diving permanently. So depending, I guess it depends, right? How much, because the more activities you do, the more balanced they're going to be, I guess, if you will.
Yeah. Dogs' bodies are like, they're amazing athletes, and their bodies can adapt really well to exercise. The challenge here is, like I mentioned with the stamina endurance, is if you're pushing the dog beyond what the body's used to doing, and also if you're not giving sufficient time for rest and recovery. I mean, if you look at, if you look at the Iditarod dogs, right? Like, these dogs are going day after day, they're doing hundreds of miles, but they've been conditioned for it. And, they spend a long time conditioning for it, and the bodies are adapting to that exercise. So, so it would depend on like, what is your dog's fitness level and where you're at, and is your dog getting sufficient time for rest and recovery, right? And then also, are you pushing the dog doing too much too soon? And that definitely could warrant to pull your dog back or cut back on a sport or whatever. So it's a fine line, but I would say those are the things to look at is, are you giving the dog's body sufficient time to adapt and get strong to those exercises? So if you're just doing it one day a week or twice a week, you probably aren't giving the body enough time to really get strong and be able to do the activities. And then also, if you are doing really, really good training, you're training throughout the week and conditioning, and you're getting rest and recovery, that's the thing, is you need that time also. If the dog's doing a lot of different sports, they're doing multiple days back to back, you have to build in some time for that body to recover. And so if you're doing so many activities that your dog is not getting that time for recovery, then again, you're setting them up for potential injury, because the body is just constantly getting that wear and tear, and then it's going to start to break down. So those are things to consider. And the other thing is also, when you are increasing activity, another thing that a lot of people will do is they'll be inconsistent, or they'll increase activity too much too soon. So a very general, there's a lot of variables that can affect it, but a very general rule of thumb, when your dog is ready to advance, you're looking at increasing like one variable, like the amount of time, the intensity, the duration. You're looking at increasing it by about 10% once you're ready. If the dog's kind of working towards their, like at the level that they're, you're kind of starting to push them to the next level, right? And so if you're, if your dog is used to, say, training for 3 miles, and then next week you increase it by a whole nother mile, so you go 3 to 4 miles or 3 to 5 miles, that's more than 10%. That's a significant jump. So that's another thing that if you are training in multiple sports, you have to look at the overall workload. How much is your dog working throughout the week? How much time, if you're doing repetitions or jumps, whatever the criteria is. And are you doing it? And then all of a sudden you're getting ready for competition. And a lot of people do it. And I'm guilty when all the people in the clubs I was training with, competition is coming up. And then all of a sudden you start ramping up your training right before competition. And sometimes you're literally doubling or tripling your workload.
Yeah, it's in your cramming.
Some of these sports, you know, like a marathon trainer, it's like the biggest problem with marathon training is trying to get to race day without having an injury. You know, that's the thing there. So, so it's a fine balance, but I would say those are the things. If people are wondering, am I doing too much? You know, do I need to back off on a sport? You know, am I pushing my dog too hard? Is looking at what is the overall workload within the days you're training and what's that workload across the week. And
right.
Are you suddenly just like jacking it up because you've got some competitions coming up? Are you consistently working your dog really, really hard in multiple sports, you know, 6-7 days a week? Those are the things that I would be looking at, because like I said, you need time for the body to adapt. Sometimes it will take a few weeks when you modify your program and make it harder. And then you also need time for that rest and recovery. And you have to make sure you're not just always just training the body in one particular way over and over and over, because then you're looking at that repetitive use. So those are all these things you need to be thinking about whenever you're making that decision, because it might be that, you know, maybe you would be fine in multiple sports, but you're not training consistently enough. Or maybe, you know, or you're not, you're doing similar sports and you're constantly working the same muscle groups in the same way over and over. And you really should be doing something to counter that, to work the other body, you know, parts that maybe aren't working so hard, to balance that out.
Well, it's just like my elbow. I have arthritis in my elbow, but they have to work all the muscles around it and above it so that it's strong enough to maintain the strength on it. So Tony asked, she has a young dog that was diagnosed with mild hip dysplasia, not a lot of no symptoms. And she swims, but she's also doing agility, which it depends, because one of the things, this is me, I had a beagle that had hip dysplasia, but I built the muscle around her hips so strong, the muscles around those hips, that she was able to do, you know, pretty much anything and without a lot of problem. Like she didn't have pain or anything towards the end of her life. That didn't affect her life that much, but she's also a smaller dog. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
Yeah.
So she said she was diagnosed with moderate to severe. So which is it, moderate or severe? They should be pretty clear on what level it is. They shouldn't. One hip maybe one hip might be worse than the other, but
yeah.
Well,
yeah. So for things that are health related or injury related or disease related, I mean, definitely we always want to refer back to the vet. You know, that's some people think canine fitness and canine rehabilitation are two separate things. It's like if you have a personal trainer versus a physical therapist,
right?
If one has a medical background versus, you know, the fitness. So you have a medical issue here, definitely. So that's definitely something where you're wanting to deal with the medical professionals, where they can actually look at the X-rays and do the, you know, and diagnose, know how severe it is, which hip, you know, what's going on. So with that said, definitely before you engage in regular exercise, you know, activities, jumping, whatever, check with your vet and ask about what limitations there might be. But with that said, I will say that a couple of years ago, I went to a conference, Dr. Cindy Otto with Penn Vet Working Dog Conference, the Penn Vet Working Dog Center, Pennsylvania. They had a small study where they were looking at dogs that had hip dysplasia, and they had some of the different degrees. Some were more serious than others, and they had X-rays of the hips, and they put them on fitness programs. These were, of course, with veterinarians and stuff setting up the programs. And for some of those dogs, they did see tremendous improvement. Not all the dogs, but they did see some of the dogs that had like amazing improvement. And I remembered at the conference, they actually put the x-rays up kind of before and after. And I was like, just amazed that you could actually see a difference in some of these dogs, a significant improvement in the x-rays. And one of the dogs ended up, was symptomatic, limping, had pain, and that dog was, became a search and rescue dog and was, working the rubble piles and stuff. So, so we do know from that, there are some dogs definitely we could see that having, a specific type of fitness program, they did see some, some very distinct, drastic improvements with some dogs. There was some that didn't necessarily make that kind of improvement, but I would definitely take that up with a veterinarian and see, what are the limitations? What can you do? What should you not be doing? But, especially if you have a dog that's shows mild, hip dysplasia, I would definitely look at and talk with your vet to see about, possibly getting that dog on a program to build strength and, whatever areas they can safely be building strength. But, it was super exciting to see some of that research that was coming out with some of those dogs.
Yeah, because I think Tony might need to seek, because it's unusual. I'm just going to say the red flag for me is a vet that says it's moderate to severe. Usually the vets are pretty clear. It's this or that, not or. Right? I've never heard a vet say it's this to that. It's pretty specific, especially with hip dysplasia. They're able to really pinpoint what the severity is. So it sounds like she definitely might need to go to an orthopedic vet to get a little bit more clarification.
And what I would like, if I had any dog diagnosed with it, I definitely would not be doing any like repetitive high impact activities. I would not be doing high impact sports until I speak to a vet and find out, can I continue to do that? And what I would encourage people to do is I wouldn't just ask, can I do this with my dog? I would say, what limitations, and get more specific. Right. And also make sure, I've had some people go to a vet and they're like, can I do, this happened to me with my dog. I was doing French ring protection sports and he was injured and we were rehabbing him. And after a few months, the vet was like, okay, you can go back to your sport. And I said, do you understand what my sport is? And I showed her a video and she's like, no, you can't go back. She's like, you're not ready for that. So make sure, if you have a sport or working dog, when you ask what you can or cannot do, if you want to return to your sport or your job, make sure they know exactly, take a video or whatever, make sure they understand what it means to do your sport or job, because if they're not super knowledgeable, like I said, she was like, yeah, go back. And I was like, I don't know. And when she saw a video of French ring and what these dogs were doing, she was like, not at all. Your dog is not ready for that.
Well, and that's why I was like saying, and we're lucky. We have a lot of really great ortho vets around here. So we're very fortunate because we do a lot of agility around here and protection and all kinds. So a lot of our ortho vets around here are pretty well versed in what we do and how we do it. So Tony, I can get you some names of, to try to get in, because, like I said, my Beagle had she was able to do all the stuff she wanted to do to the end of her life. And it's just the muscle. I had to work on building the muscle around that hip. And because both hips might be different, right? And so I have shepherds, so I check their hips all the time. And that's what I mean, Tony. Most of the vets will tell you pretty specific. It's not like this to this. That doesn't sound right.
I think what's also missing too, maybe not so much in Illinois, especially where I'm at, there are not a lot of sport rehab vets around. that monitor movement to determine what's off, what's going on, if there is an injury and so forth, and then how to identify that. We have a lot of just regular general practitioners, just like a regular doctor. And then you really need to look at going to a specialist to determine what your needs are. So I think with the, if I'm not mistaken, Erica, I think basically these are dogs that have been approved or released to normal activities and do not have any signs of pain. And I think that's hard for some people to recognize, right? Because, reading dogs is a thing. But like understanding the gait analysis of it is really important as well, because you can tell the dog there's something going on with the dog.
Right. And Erica's right, because it's like a lot of vets, if they don't know what the sport is, and you go, well, this is what we're doing. Because we had something else converse different than that, Erica. I had somebody, a student of mine, a vet told the student that they can't do nose work. And I'm like, but I mean, I can't remember what the injury was. It wasn't anything that was going to affect. And so I go, does your vet know what nose work is? And she goes, well, I'm sure he does. I'm like, no, why would they? That's something too. So I go, no, you should show them a video of your dog doing the sport. And
those are awesome.
Yeah. And then find out like if it's okay for him to do that. And then she comes back, she goes, oh yeah, it's fine. I'm like, yeah. Cause it's like, I can't remember what the injury was, but it wasn't anything that nose work was going to make worse or whatever. So it was just weird.
Yeah. And also nowadays with the medical advances and things that they're doing, like with telemedicine and the virtual type stuff, and like they do things where they can like do surgeries where they're using like robotics and stuff. Is if you don't have access to like a sports specialist, if you're not getting the answers that you feel like you need or you want, or you just don't feel like your gut is just telling you like, I don't know, this isn't what doesn't seem right, what I would do is if there is nobody in your area who is in a specialty like that and saying, works with athletes or sports medicine or whatever, is I would look and see, where the specialists are and see because there are more and more vets now in those specialty areas that will collaborate, and they will collaborate with other veterinarians, and they will, use all the amazing technologies that we have nowadays to be able to support those veterinarians who maybe don't have those resources or, the maybe knowledge in a particular area. So don't rule that out. If you know that there is, a specialist and, maybe they're 7 hours away, don't just write them off and say, well, they're 7 hours away and I can't get to them, or they're on the other side of the country. It wouldn't hurt to reach out and see if they would be a way to kind of collaborate, or even looking at scans across and doing some communication. And there are some vets also that do virtual consults and things like that. So
because the other thing that comes to mind too, a dog with severe hip dysplasia, I can see that. I can see it because Lisa and I have had dogs come through, and it's like your dog is dysplastic, and we're not vets, but I go, you need to check it, but I'm sure your dog is, and we've been. I mean, when it's moderate, when it's severe, usually you are seeing it in the dog. The dog that wouldn't have no symptoms. That's why I'm like, she probably needs an ortho vet. All right. Deb Evans was asking about, can you talk about working puppy and adolescent dogs that are still growing?
Yeah. So usually the guidelines for puppies, or building like a structured fitness program where you're doing repetitive exercises multiple days a week, is you want those dogs to be physically mature. And growth plates are closed, and that can greatly vary depending on breed. You have some that might be a year and a half, some that might be, around a year again. So, talking with your vet, but usually what things that you're wanting to do definitely is avoid like, high impact stuff, and, jumping, jumping on hard surfaces, the repetitive type things. Typically for puppies and when they're young, doing things that are more self-directed. Definitely things like, body awareness and being on different surfaces and like little mini obstacle courses that are safe, so they're not going to fall off of anything. Things that are building confidence, those types of things. But I would not be doing things like repetitive activities, and we're going to specifically focus on training to build strength in your dog, or building up cardio and adding more distance and intensity. That's the kind of stuff that I would definitely wait until they're physically mature. But one of the things that I do with the young dogs is I like to teach kind of more foundational stuff that when they are physically mature, they're ready to rock and roll. So things like helping them use their body in a balanced way. It's like my one dog, when he got injured, I didn't realize he was super, super sloppy in how he would sit and all crooked. And he was like working dog bloodlines. He was not conformation show dog. He was a working dog. So he, not necessarily like your perfect body structure. And so when he would be super sloppy or his legs are all sticking out and toeing out, I was just kind of like, well, that's just how he's built. And when I started rehabbing him, she was like, I want you to sit him square. I want him to have good posture. I want him to bring his legs in. And I was like, but he's, he doesn't have perfect conformation. He's not a show dog. Like she's like, no, he can do it. She was like, you let him like be sloppy. He just developed very bad habits. And so sure enough, it took me like daily working on, let's, sit balanced and let's get that knee in and let's sit a certain way. And he started being more balanced and using his body in a more balanced way. And I was like, oh my gosh, like he actually can be nice and square. So with the puppies, what I do is, from day one, when I'm teaching them like how to sit and down and stand, is I always kind of look at, good balance. And I want them to be, not always leaning on one hip, or, be nice and square, and just kind of encouraging them to use their body in a more balanced way, and not being, super sloppy if I'm out there just doing some puppy training. And I'll do things like targeting, like body awareness, targeting their front feet, targeting their back feet, because when they get older, that behavior, if I can control the front right foot or the back left foot or the 2 front feet and the 2 back feet, and start having them target things, I now can start controlling the body. I can have control when the dog gets older. If I want to put them on equipment or target like the front right shoulder or the hindquarters. So the more that you can get some body awareness, getting your dog to have a really good solid stand, because you'll be amazed. Like, for example, like a great exercise, people say, how do you target like just one shoulder, right? How do I target just, emphasize more one part of the body? And you can do a 3-legged stand and you can target the front right, the front left, you can rotate. But if your dog does not have a really nice balanced stand, as soon as you take a leg up, they're going to be all leaning, their hips are, off center.
And you
yeah, go ahead.
Recommend that. I'm sorry, you recommend that like on the flat or on maybe a short raised surface, versus like, I know sometimes people go nuts and they start working on the balanced instability equipment, and that's not the place to start, correct?
No, on the flat, on the ground. Definitely you could put them on a like a raised surface, but a solid surface. You need to have really good posture on the solid surface before you put them on the unstable surface. And sometimes, give them plenty of space, like on a raised platform. Sometimes if you have a dog that's super antsy, they won't stand still. They're moving and moving. If you have them, on a table or a little bit of a raised platform, it does help to settle, and you give them a little bit of boundaries, right? I'm not giving you 10 feet to spin around. So that can help. So definitely I would have them on a solid surface. But if I love doing this at a workshop, if you have like an inflatable disc, and if you stand on an inflatable disc and you stand 2 feet and you're nice and square, if you stand on it and you bend one knee, so you're just a little bit off, right? And you're balancing, you'll see how all your weight is kind of shifting more on one side versus the other, and one leg is working a lot more than the other. So when you get your dog on an unstable surface, if your dog is not, perfectly square, you think you're working both back legs or both shoulders, but actually your dog's going to be off balance, and you're just reinforcing the dominant leg is working harder and the weaker leg is not. So, so that actually, can be stressing the body in ways they're not ready for, but also you could actually be making the very things you're wanting to improve. You're actually could be reinforcing the actual weaknesses and problems because they're on the equipment, but they're not having proper body posture. Sure. So definitely on the flat, on the ground, or on a solid raised surface, plenty of space so they can sit or stand. But those are things, like I said, working with a puppy, because even my own dog, I thought we had a really good stand, but then when we started trying a 3-legged stand, I realized you're not really that balanced, are you? And we had to go back and reteach the stand, because it's like, well, it looked good, but for balance, he wasn't totally balanced. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good information, because it's like, with my Tango, I've had to do a lot of physical fitness because his rear was so weak, and now when he can't do treadmill, which has helped him keep that muscle, doing that stuff on the fly and and doing that 3-legged stand, on each leg is really hard, but it's helped him a lot. And actually lifting up is too hard. I've had to use like a little more squishy surface, so he has to balance it a little bit more, and that's helped, because he's got he's a huge dog. He's a 95-pound dog.
Yeah.
So and his rear is kind of weak. So so what are some other, I know Karen has worked with you to do a program, she said, with Woodson. What are some other to go back to the puppies, some what did you call them? Exercises, body awareness. Or
Yep. Yeah. So some of the things for the puppies, like, for example, like you might have, like, say, an inflatable disc exercise equipment, low to the ground. You might have them walking over it, right? Have them walking over and under and through things. But with the puppies, what I would do is I mentioned more self-directed. So it's going to be like the environment is out there for them to explore, but it's not like I'm going to be going up and say, oh, let's go do a repetitive exercise. And now we're going to do it, 10 times. And now we're going to do 3 sets of it. It's more kind of setting up that environment so they can kind of explore it, freely. And the other thing is, depending on the kind of drive level, is when we say kind of self-directed, like when they get tired, the puppies will go and rest, or, if they've had enough, they can stop whenever they want. One of the things you have to be careful of, especially dogs with some drive, whether it's drive to be with you, they're human, or drive to play with another dog or to chase a ball, is when you tap into some of these dogs' drive level, they can easily push beyond what they're ready for, because their drive to chase after the older dog, or their drive to, follow you while you're jogging or running or riding your bike, that's not necessarily self-directed. That's like, they're like, I need to keep up, I need to keep playing, or their prey drive for the, a toy that they're chasing after. So be aware that when you've got the younger dogs, you want them to be able to kind of self-monitor, like if they're getting tired or they need to rest or they want to play, and they play. But be careful, especially for these high drive dogs, when you tap into these different drives, you can push them beyond what their body should be doing.
Right. And Deb Evans' Zippy is, I think, 15 or 16 months, and he does push himself past his because he likes to play. So he does. Yep. I can tell you.
We have to step in.
He's very, very drivey. Yeah. Very drivey dog. So, yeah.
So you got to kind of be careful when you say kind of self-directed, and kind of oh yeah, well, they'll stop when they get tired. But the thing is some of them, they will go because of the drive until they physically can't. And they've gone way beyond what they should have. So our job to kind of intercept and be like, okay, it's time for you to take a break. And, no, we're not going to play with the adult dog for 30 minutes in the backyard while you're body slamming each other. Right. in.
So Jennifer
Yeah.
Luper wrote here, what age are you referring to when you
Oh,
say puppies and teenagers?
Yeah, it's like I said, it depends on the dog and the breed and the speed at which they grow. For any kind of repetitive type structured fitness program where I'm building strength, where I'm building endurance, where I'm doing cardio work and road work, I would say wait until they are physically mature, growth plates are closed. So like I said, that could be a year, could be a year and a half. That's where the breed, talking to your vet, they can take x-rays and stuff. And for some people, you'll hear them quote, they'll say like for each month of the dog is like 5 minutes of exercise. If you've ever had, like a working line dog or a breed that has high energy, high drive, it's like 5 minutes of exercise for this dog is not enough. So I don't go by these kind of calculated formulas. Sometimes people say, oh, I've heard this formula. I've had Dobermans and working line Malinois, and for them it's I would say we go out 5-10 minutes, but we go multiple times throughout the day. So it's better to do those shorter bits of energy. And like am I going to have a 7-month-old or 8-month-old to be like if there's a little Cavaletti pole that's 5 inches off the ground and they're a 65-pound Malinois 7 months old, I'm not going to be like, oh my God, you just, jumped 4 inches. I'm not going to freak out, but I'm not doing repetitive. I'm not going to be like, jump, 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 jump. I'm not going to be out there encouraging them. So what I did in French ring, we have like a hurdle. So you'll have like a meter or high. And what I would do before my dog was physically mature, was kind of the age I'm using. We weren't doing hurdle jumps. We weren't doing jumps. I would maybe have a little pole that's a few inches, and I would mimic the behavior of the exercise. So you heel up to it. The dog does a sit stay. I walk over to the hurdle. I call my dog over. So what I did was I taught the whole process of that hurdle exercise, and the dog would go over the hurdle, but it was just really, really low. And then when my dog was, a year and a half old, when I was ready to introduce the hurdle, I mean, the dog, he knew it. It's like he knew the whole routine. He was physically fit. He was strong. It was like there was no training. He had it. He already knew the whole pattern. He knew, what the exercise looked like. He knew to jump because it was just, tiny, go between these two poles. And then when it was time, he was like, okay, he's mature now. He's older than a year old. And just started raising it. And then like, bam, like he had the hurdle. There was nothing to teach. He knew the whole routine, and he was physically fit enough. Like my dog jumping a meter was, no issue. Cause he was super, just athletic. But that's what I did is, like I said, I'm not going to go and freak out over my, 7, 8, 9-month-old. If he's doing, oh, he just jumped off the stairs. I'm not going to ask him to be doing repetitive jumping, but I don't build it into like a structured fitness program. The things like the repetitiveness, purposely looking at, the strength training, trying to get, mileage on cardio, that would be after the dog is physically mature, is what most guidelines are whenever you talk with, veterinarians and people in rehab and stuff.
Right. Would you suggest those same things for a senior dog? Lauren's asking suggestions for continued strength and stability in an active, healthy senior large breed dog. So yes. Would you probably say those are the same exercises you would do, right?
So yeah. So with the seniors, I actually think of fitness as being even more important for the seniors, because when they start declining and especially you got medium to large size dogs, a lot of times it's like when their hind end can't work anymore, that's like a lot of times when the dog has to be euthanized. So, a young dog that, misses some exercise and I can't keep up with this training, it's like, well, we'll make up for it. Some of those senior dogs, if you can't maintain it, that might be the decision of, you have to put them down because they just can't manage day to day. And so when I have like a younger dog and an older dog and I'm really limited and getting exercise that week, like my senior would get the priority. And for the seniors, maintaining strength training, that's going to be really, really important for a lot of these dogs is, and also balance and body awareness. Some of these older dogs get kind of wobbly, that, trip and fall over sometimes. So strength and body awareness and balance, and you will adjust it. If you have an active dog and you have a fitness program, you'll notice as they're getting older, progressively they're going to not be able to handle the repetitions or the activities like they used to. So you kind of start modifying them and kind of, we're going to do fewer repetitions, or this exercise you're getting weak, we have to change it from an unstable object to a stable platform. And so if you're keeping them active, you'll notice, they'll have bad days and good days, and you have to just keep modifying it. But ultimately with the senior dogs, I find, at least with mine, things like the high impact activities, the jumping is some of the first things that you see the limitations. They can no longer jump up on the bed. I'm not having them, they're not jumping in the car. I'm now helping them into the car. And so the high impact, that repetitive stuff, if you think about puppies, some of those things that we're restricting with the puppies sometimes are some of the first things that you start to see your senior dog isn't handling as well. But I definitely encourage people, like when you retire that senior dog, sport dog, and you get that young dog and, you're all excited getting them ready for competition, I would say, please, don't forget that senior dog that might be staying home on the weekends and not competing anymore. Don't just, if they physically can get out and keep them active, don't just, turn them into that weekend warrior. Like, my senior dog's Bachi, it's about 6 months ago, we lost him. He was over 14 years old. Maintaining activity daily, even if it's just go out and walk for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, keeping them mobile as long as you can I think is so important for the senior dogs. And if you do it, daily or whatever they can take, my dog, he got to the point, it's like he needed it, even if it wasn't a lot of activity, you would notice he'd be out and then he'd be a little sore the next day. So I found like every other day was nice for him. But you'll find some days they'll just they're just having a bad day, and some days they're having a better day. But if you keep them active, and then when they're retired, and just maintain that activity and modify it as needed, and that 10% rule, again, you don't want to all of a sudden have them not very active during the week, and then you go to the beach for holiday, and next thing you know, you're hiking for 2 hours with that senior dog who at most had 15 minutes 3 times a week. So those same rules you got to apply.
Right. Well, and I'll be honest, that's one thing. That's probably another Facebook Live topic, but one of the things I wanted to talk, that you mentioned about retiring, people, when they decide I'm going to retire the dog then has no activity, nothing. They don't do physical. There's no mental activity. There's nothing. And then the dog really quickly declines, and usually they die in a short time. So I think people are trying to do the right thing by saying, oh, my dog can't do the sport anymore, instead of maybe trying to modify that, so they can have some stimulation or whatever. Because I'm like, that is what I think.
Yeah.
Lisa and all our dogs live a long time. And that's because we keep them doing things, even if it's moderate. I remember my 15-year-old lab, 80-pound lab, even towards the end of his life, I put little dump holes on the ground, and he went over them like he was happy. It kept him, he didn't do very much, right? It was like one time because that's all he could do, but it just kept him moving a little bit, and and it was mostly for the mental, because truthfully, he was really walking slowly over him because he was so old, but it kept him mentally stimulated. And I think a lot of people, they think retirement, they think nothing. The dogs go from doing this to absolutely nothing, and it's crazy.
And I found massage. My dog responded really well to massage, my senior dog, and also some acupuncture. So
Yep.
alternative therapies and stuff can also help them.
Oh yeah, we do a lot of massage and all kinds of, but yeah, it's and this is the hard part is keeping up with trying to build stamina and trying to keep or endurance and trying to keep the dogs fit is a lot of work. It's hard, but it's totally worth it because then, like you said, we save a lot of money. The dogs aren't going to the vet all the time for a bunch of stuff.
Hopefully extending that life and quality of life, right? Lisa, were you going to say something? I don't know if you were.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I remember Simon, like I found out when he was about 10 months old, he fought the odds on all levels, that dog. But he almost made it to 18. He had mild dysplasia in one and moderate in the other. And I mean, you could totally see it all the time. But like even from the day it was time where he was kind of failing mentally and stuff, his body was still kind of going. He was still able to walk up and down stairs one step at a time, so yeah, but it makes a difference. And then keeping them mentally stimulated. Yeah, it's really important. I don't think we do enough of it with our older dogs.
And I finally got to the point where I had to use a harness, to kind of help in the hind end. But I was very aware. It's like, I wanted him to do as much as he could and I would support him, but I'm not going to just overly feel like, here, I'm just going to help you with everything. Cause it's like, you need to keep using your muscles, as long as possible. Right. I'll assist you, but I'm not going to take over all that workload. Cause I still, want him to try to be as independent as he can, but I had the harness to help, but I was very aware of, he still needs that opportunity to try to maintain that strength as long as he can. So I'll help him, but I'm not going to completely take over while he can still manage and take that away from him.
Yeah. So Erica, could you tell us, I know you have a little bit of a freebie for our people who are watching, your guide.
Yep, I have a couple of things. If you throw it in the chat, will different people in different sites get it? But there's a couple of things I wanted to share. Is I am doing in about 2 weeks, depending on when you watch it, if you're watching this live, but I'm going to be doing a free online workshop in how to increase speed, power, and stamina in canine performance. And all of you are totally invited to come, and we'll have the link available for you. It's it is free, and we go in depth, talking more in depth about building up stamina, power, and speed with a lot of these sport and working dogs. But I'm also going to be introducing the process of program design. We have a 6-step process to program design, where we talk about where in those steps, when in your building your program, should you be focusing on that, high intensity work, and what should you be doing and before that. So we have a nice kind of easy 6-step process that I'll be talking about, and building your weekly and monthly program. So I wanted to share that with everybody, invite them. If you watch this video replay late and you missed it, we should have get on the waiting list, because this is something I offer usually a couple times a year. And then I have a free canine fitness planning guide that everybody's welcome to have access to. There's a video that goes with it. And there's a little kind of a little workbook to help you think about, what is your dog currently doing? What does your current activity weekly program look like? What are the different components you need to be thinking about to have a nice balanced program? And there's a video to go with it to help you think about, where are the gaps? What are you doing well, and where are there possible gaps, and what might you need to be working on? So I'd highly encourage everybody to check out the Canine Fitness Planning Guide. And then anybody who's really, really super passionate about canine fitness, and you want to deep dive, you want to learn how to confidently build programs yourself, modify them for a variety of different types of dogs, we do have our online Elite Canine Athlete program. And there's an option to also do it for certification. So we have people that complete that program, some who do it just to focus on their own dogs, and some people that do it to ultimately want to work with other people's dogs, or teach fitness and build up programs, not for a variety of different dog and handler teams. So I encourage people to check out that. But definitely for free, sign up if you can to the upcoming workshop on developing speed, power, and stamina. Great for sport dogs, working dogs, or if you have a really active pet dog. And then the Canine Fitness Planning Guide is, I think it's probably one of our most popular free downloads that we have available.
And I put those are all on the chat there, and they'll all come up on our subsequent pages. And I flashed it on there so just in case to help you out here, the workshop is caninegetfit.com/stamina is for the workshop, and sign up for that. And for the planning guide, it's caninegetfit.com/guide. But they're also there for you to just click on and go straight there. So they're there for you to get all the information and get you guys and sign up for that. And I think it's a great opportunity to get more information and learn more. Erica, like she said, has a wonderful certification program, and I think it's one of the best out there. There's a lot of them out there, but this one's one of the better ones. It's a lot more in depth and has a lot more. It goes a little deeper than most. So, it's just check out her Facebook page, Canine
Northeast, and also the webpage is Northeast Canine. It's the letter K, the number 9, Northeast Canine Conditioning. And we do have, for any people involved in working dogs, search and rescue, police, canine handlers, we do have kind of like an entry level. It's a mission ready canine course. And we also have another kind of an intermediate course, not the super comprehensive, but it's called the Canine Peak Performance. But they're on our website, and we do have a Facebook page, but it's Northeast, one word, Northeast Canine, the letter K, the number 9, Northeast Canine Conditioning. So,
yep, I will put those out there.
Information out there for you.
Yep, condition.com. All right, that's out there as well. All right. Erica, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
For joining us again. And again, there's like 1,000 more topics we can talk about when it comes to canine fitness. But, as trainers, Lisa and I early on in our careers realized how important physical fitness is, because I cannot tell you how many cases we've gotten that it wasn't really a behavioral problem. It was mostly a physical problem, and once you got the physical problem squared away, the behavior problem got better. So that's how we started really getting into the physical fitness piece of it, and that's why it's so important. So.
I know you have a number of nose work, scent work people too. People might think if the dog's just walking or at the end of a harness, if you do nose work, scent work, detection work, 100% you need to be focusing on fitness, because the more fit they are, their research shows they're going to search better, and their accuracy is going to be better because they're not going to be fatiguing so quickly. They're going to be more alert. So even fitness is not just for the dogs that are jumping off a dock, running as fast as they can.
Right.
If you are doing a dog in a harness and they're walking slowly sniffing and you're relying on that nose, you want a fit dog. They are going to search better, and you're going to see the benefits. So some people usually think of it just for those active, fast
Right.
running, jumping dogs. But if you are relying on your dog's nose and you want an accurate searcher and you don't want them, getting easily distracted and fatiguing quickly, definitely fitness is really important for those dogs too.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you so much, Erica. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.